My classroom is very neutral. I try to stick to whites, grays, natural wood color. On my walls, I only have material that I use for teaching. So I've taken out any like motivational posters or decorations that don't have a purpose. I try to have as much clear space on my wall as possible. If I'm not using something, I take it down. I've really reduced the like visual distractions in my room as much as possible. Nothing hanging from the ceiling. Lots of natural light and soft lighting in my room, lamps and fairy lights. I often dim the ceiling lights because they're very bright. So even for me, they can give me a headache. So I dim the lights, and I have some twinkle, or not twinkle lights, but fairy lights in the room, and the warm yellow lights for the children. And I have an IKEA ache chair that children can use if they're feeling overwhelmed or need a bit of a quiet space. I've pushed my teacher desk against the wall, and I've removed the chair from that area so that children can go under my desk, and that's kind of a cozy little hideout. I have a carpet on the floor and a little box of fidgets, and a blanket that they can actually put over the desk, so they have a little hideout there. I also have a big box of fidgets that any children are allowed to use, bean bags in my classroom, and wiggle seats, wiggles, which is a new product that I just came across. It's the same as the wiggle cushion, but it's for your feet, so it's not as distracting. And then I find that the children can still have their core strong, but their feet can move, which I prefer over the wiggle seats actually. And weighted animals, which is the most popular item in my room this year. I now have 3 of them. The children love them. The biggest thing that I've found that has made the tool successful is I allow all the children to use them. So it's not just one child who's using it. And I know some children feel embarrassed or self-conscious about using the tools because it singles them out. But if you open it up to your whole class using it, then it's the cool thing to do, to have a wiggle seat or the wiggle feet or the weighted animal. They all want to use it. The beginning of the year, I open all my tools up to all the children. I don't have everything out at once, but like the IKEA ache chair, the bean bag, there are some rules around it. They can use it during their free time when they're finished their work. During center time, all the tools are available. And then the children know that my ache chair is for one of my students in particular who often needs it to join us at circle time. So she gets priority over the ache chair, but if she's not using it and they are finished their work or at center time, then they can go in it. And if they don't have to ask permission, they can just go as long as no one else is already there in the chair or on the bean bags. And they just, they've kind of learned, even like without me teaching them, like who needs the tools. I think at the beginning, letting them explore and all use it really helps, because at first it's super cool and they all want to do it, and then they learn like what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And it's not so like, why does she get to use it, or why does he get to use it, or I want to use it, because they've all had the opportunity to use it, and they learn what works best for them. And then they know that certain kids use something more than they do, and that's okay, and it's not a big deal, and no one makes comments about it anymore. It's just a thing that we do, and it's not unusual, or we don't have 1 or 2 children standing out because they're using certain tools. It's just so accepted among the children. And we do talk about the fidgets as tools instead of toys. And if they are using it as a toy, if they're like whipping each other with one of the rubber noodles or throwing something across the room, then they do lose the privilege of using those for the day. In the beginning of the year, I always tell the EAs that if their student gets up in the middle of a lesson, that's okay. Let them walk around, let them move. I want them to feel comfortable in the room, and they're already having to filter out so much with the class full of children and lights and sounds and children tapping their desk and making, mouth noises, and then the tool cases opening and closing, scissors, like all that. They're trying to filter out their EA talking to them, me talking to them. So if they need to get up and move around, that's fine. And at first the EAs are like, oh, are you sure? Like, is that okay? And because their student will be walking around in front of me at calendar time, touching the calendar, sitting on my lap, standing right in front of me, and it's okay. And eventually they learn to sit on the carpet with the rest of the children. It might take a couple of weeks, but they've always learned to do that. It just might take them a while to realize, oh, like, this is what we do in the classroom. But if they're forced to sit down in the beginning, that never goes well. It never, ever goes well. So I let them move freely around the room. If they need to jump, if they need to wiggle, if they need to make noises, that's fine. If it's a bad day and it's an extreme meltdown, then the child usually goes to the sensory room where there's more equipment there for them to be able to self-regulate. I haven't had to do that, or we haven't had to take a child out of the room this year. And I think it's because of all the tools that I've brought into the classroom. This is the first year I've had beanbags, and a few of my students in particular, they just love the beanbags. And when they're lying on the beanbag, they just instantly calm down. So we haven't had any meltdowns like that this year. And I think it's because of the tools in the room and the fact that they're allowed to move around if they want to move around. And if they get up while I'm teaching and walk across the room, that's okay. And I have told the EAs, like, don't worry about following them around the room. They might just need to pace a little bit and then come and sit down. And they almost always do that. And I do let the children stand while I'm teaching, or stand while they're working. The only time they all have to sit is if I'm using the document camera, the projector, and they would be blocking the view. Otherwise, they're more than welcome to stand if they need to. I've had children kneeling on the floor while they're writing in their journal. Some children like to lie on their stomachs while they're writing in their journal, and that's okay. I think it's in the beginning of the year, like I said before, telling the EAs, just let the child do what they need to do. Let them move around, let them make noise if they want to make noise. I find it more chaotic if there's an adult chasing 2 or 3 of my students around the room while I'm trying to teach. If it's just one child moving around the room, that's fine. And then the other children realize that this is how this person learns, this is how that person learns, and we talk about it. If one of my students is pacing around the room while I'm teaching, I might say, oh, look, Jane needs to walk around in order for her brain to learn. Like, or I have one boy who makes throat clearing sounds over and over and over again while he's listening to calendar. And we say, like, this is how Danny learns. He's making noises, and that's okay. He's learning. That's how his brain can focus. And I've had a few new students come into the room, or TOCs come in, and these children will make their noises or pace, and the other children will say like, oh, this is how Danny learns, or this is how so and so learns. And the adults have told me that the kids have said that, and that they're just very accepting of it. And what may be alarming to some people is not to them. So you don't usually see children pacing around the room while the teacher is teaching, or spinning on the floor, but it just makes for a calmer environment for me and for the students, when they're not constantly being corrected, not constantly being told to sit still. I think that also, I was going to say, one of the biggest things is just letting go of the fact that not every child has to be sitting crisscross on the floor, quietly looking at you. It's okay for them to move. It's okay for them to get up. It's okay for them to do what they need to do to learn.